Somewhere in Britain right now, an elderly woman is writing a cheque to her council for money she never owed. Not because she made a mistake, but because nobody told her the rules. Council tax is the one bill that lands on every doormat, yet buried in the small print site, dozens of discounts, disregards and exemptions, your local authority will quite happily let you overpay rather than mention. One of them on this list is worth an average of £400 a year and can be backdated for years. Another wipes the bill clean to zero. The councils know, they simply wait for you to ask. So before we count down all 23, do a fellow pensioner a favour and share this. Let us begin the countdown with number 23. Number 23, the 12-month instalment plan. This is not a discount in the strictest sense, but it is the first thing the council will never volunteer, and it quietly saves the most stretched households from going under. By default, your bill is carved into 10 monthly payments running from April to January, which means 2 brutal months where the council tax simply stops, but only after it has taken a larger bite each month than it needed to. Every bill payer in England and Wales has the legal right to ask for 12 instalments instead. The total you pay across the year does not change by a penny, but the monthly figure drops by a fifth, smoothing the load so the heating bill and the council tax do not arrive together in the dark of winter. For a pensioner on a fixed income watching every standing order, that flattening of the payments is the difference between coping and dread. You must request it in writing before the financial year begins to get the full benefit, and the council will process it without complaint. They just will not offer it. Nobody ever does. Number 22. The major repairs discount. If your home becomes genuinely uninhabitable, perhaps after a burst pipe floods the ground floor, a fire guts the kitchen, or major structural work tears the place apart, your council may grant a discount or short exemption while the work is carried out and the property sits empty. This used to be a guaranteed national exemption, but the rules were handed to local councils, so the amount and the length now vary from one authority to the next. Some offer a full waiver for up to 12 months, others grant a generous reduction. The catch is that the property must be empty and the works must be substantial, not a fresh coat of paint. For an older homeowner forced out by a disaster, perhaps staying with a son or daughter while the builders move in, this relief means they are not paying full council tax on a house they cannot even live in. It is rarely advertised, often forgotten, and almost never applied unless you ring up and prove the state of the place. Number 21. The bereavement exemption. When the sole occupant of a home passes away, the property does not magically stop owing council tax, but it should. Under what councils call a Class F exemption, a home left empty because the person who lived there has died is exempt from council tax entirely while the estate is being settled. The exemption runs until probate is granted and then continues for a further 6 months after that, provided the property stays empty and unsold. For a grieving family already drowning in paperwork, solicitors and the slow machinery of probate, the last thing anyone thinks to do is tell the council to stop charging the dead. And the council, in turn, will keep issuing demands in the deceased's name until somebody picks up the phone. This is one of the quietest cruelties in the whole system, a bill chasing an empty chair. The exemption exists, it is automatic once you notify them, but you must notify them. They will not stop the clock out of kindness. Number 20. The wrong band challenge. Here is a secret the council has every reason to keep. Hundreds of thousands of British homes have been sitting in the wrong council tax band since 1991, when the original valuations were done in a rush, sometimes by surveyors driving past at speed and guessing from the curb. If your home was placed a band too high, you have been overpaying for over 30 years. You can ask the valuation office agency to review your band, and if it is corrected downward, your bill drops permanently, and any overpayment is refunded back to the day you moved in or back to 1993, whichever is later. The clever move is to check what your neighbours in identical houses are paying. If a near-identical home next door sits a band lower, that is your evidence. The risk and the reason to tread carefully is that a review can occasionally push a band up, so it pays to research before you challenge. But for the pensioner who has paid a band too high since Thatcher's day, the refund can run into thousands. Number 19. The religious community disregard. This one feels almost medieval, and that is precisely why nobody remembers it. If you are a member of a religious community, a monastery, a convent, or a similar order whose principal occupation is prayer, contemplation, education, or the relief of suffering, and you have no personal income or capital of your own beyond a pension from former employment, you are disregarded for council tax. You simply do not count as an adult when the bill is calculated. For older members of such communities living out their final years in shared houses, this disregard can reduce or even erase the charge. It applies to a small number of people, certainly, but it is real. It is in the legislation, and the council will never raise it because they are not in the business of asking residents about their devotional life. If this is your world, the relief is sitting there waiting. Number 18. The apprentice in the household. Most pensioners assume an apprentice has nothing to do with them, but consider the grandparent raising a grandchild, or the older couple with a young relative living under their roof. If a member of your household is on a recognized apprenticeship, earning a low training wage and working towards a qualification, that person is disregarded for council tax purposes. They are not counted as a second adult. And here is where it matters. If the only other adult in your home is that disregarded apprentice, you, the pensioner, suddenly qualify for the single-person discount of 25%, even though there are two of you in the house. The council does not connect these dots for you. They see two adults and bill you accordingly. You have to tell them the apprentice does not count, supply the proof from the training provider, and watch the discount appear. Number 17. The student in the home. The same hidden logic applies to full-time students, and this is the one that catches out so many grandparents. Across Britain, older people take in a grandchild who has gone off to college or university, but still calls the family home their base. That young person, if they are in genuine full-time education, is disregarded for council tax entirely. A home where everyone is a full-time student pays nothing at all. But the situation that traps pensioners is the in-between. A widow living with her student grandchild assumes she must pay the full two-adult bill, when in fact the student does not count, and she is entitled to the 25% single-person discount as the only countable adult in the house. Multiply that quarter off the bill across the 3 or 4 years of a degree, and it is a substantial sum. The council files you as a two-adult household and says nothing. Number 16. The war widows and war pension disregard. Britain owes a particular debt to those who served and to the families they left behind, and the council tax rules carry a quiet acknowledgement of it that almost nobody claims. Certain payments, including a war widow's pension and a war disablement pension, are wholly disregarded as income when a council works out whether you qualify for help with your bill. A pensioner who assumes their war pension counts against them, pushing their income too high to qualify for support, may in fact be entitled to a substantial reduction once that pension is correctly ignored. The rules around which payments are disregarded vary in their fine detail, and this is exactly the kind of thing a busy council office will not patiently explain over the counter. For the widow of a serviceman, or for the veteran themselves drawing a disablement pension, it is worth insisting that these payments be set aside before any means test is applied. Number 15. The Annex discount. If your property includes a self-contained annex, the so-called granny flat, with its own front door and its own living space, the council treats it as a separate dwelling and sends a second bill. For years, families were stung with 2 full council tax charges on a single home, an absurdity the government eventually scrapped. Now, if that annex is lived in by a relative or used by the family who occupy the main house, the annex bill is cut in half. And here is the part the council keeps to itself. This 50% discount stacks on top of other discounts. A pensioner living alone in the main house, already entitled to their 25% single-person discount, applies that first, then takes a further 50% off the annex portion. The savings compound. The bill that looked like 2 full charges becomes a fraction of what the family feared. But you must apply, and you must prove who lives where. Number 14. The dependent relative annex exemption. This goes one crucial step further, and it is among the most generous reliefs in the entire system. If the annex is the main home of a dependent relative, the council tax on that annex is not merely halved, it is wiped out entirely. A dependent relative, in the council's own definition, is someone who is age 65 or over, or who is severely mentally impaired, or who is substantially and permanently disabled. So picture the common arrangement. An elderly mother moves into the annex at the back of her daughter's house so the family can care for her in her final years. That annex owes no council tax at all, not a halved bill, not a discount, nothing. Yet thousands of families in exactly this situation carry on paying because the council issues the bill and the family, exhausted by caring, simply pays what is asked. The exemption is there. It just requires somebody to claim it. Number 13. The paid carer disregard. When a pensioner needs round-the-clock support, families sometimes bring a paid care worker to live in the home. That live-in carer, provided they are employed to care for someone in the household and are paid no more than a modest weekly sum through a recognised arrangement, does not count as an adult for council tax. The presence of a second person in the home would normally cost the household the loss of any single person discount, but because the carer is disregarded, the discount can survive. For an older person who lives alone, but for the carer keeping them safe, this means the 25% off does not vanish the moment help moves in. The council, seeing two names at one address, will assume the full charge applies. The burden falls on the family to explain the carer's status and reclaim the discount that was theirs all along. Number 12. The family carer disregard. Far more common and far more often missed is the relative who gives up their own life to care for a loved one. If you provide at least 35 hours of care a week to someone you live with and that person receives a qualifying disability benefit, you are disregarded for council tax. There are conditions. You cannot be the spouse or partner of the person you care for, and you cannot be a parent caring for your own child under 18. But for the daughter who has moved back in to nurse an ailing father or one elderly sibling caring for another, the disregard is real. And as with so many entries on this list, if the carer is disregarded and the cared-for person is also disregarded, perhaps through severe mental impairment, the household can tumble down to a 50% discount or vanish from the bill entirely. The council counts heads at the door. It does not ask who is caring for whom. Number 11. The empty home while you are in care. This is the entry that breaks hearts because of who it affects and how rarely it is claimed. When an older person moves permanently into a care home or a hospital, the home they leave behind, standing empty, becomes exempt from council tax. Under the relevant exemption class, a property left unoccupied because its resident has gone into care to receive the support they need owes nothing while it sits empty. Yet families dealing with the upheaval of moving a parent into care, sorting belongings, managing the house, often keep paying the council tax on the empty property for months, sometimes for a year or more, simply because the bill keeps arriving and nobody told them it should stop. The exemption has no time limit while the person remains in care and the home stays empty. All it takes is a phone call to the council confirming the move. That call is worth hundreds, often more than £1,000. Number 10. The care home resident disregard. There is a companion to the rule above for the situation reversed. If a pensioner has gone to live permanently in a care home or is a long-stay patient in hospital, they are disregarded as a resident at any other address where they might still be counted. The point of this is fairness. A person should not be billed as an occupant of a home they no longer truly live in. For families managing a parent's affairs across two addresses, understanding this disregard prevents the absurdity of an elderly relative being counted twice over. It works alongside the empty home exemption to make sure the move into care does not trigger a stack of charges on a person who has left their old life behind. The council will not untangle this for you. You must lay out the circumstances and ask them to apply the disregard. Number 9. The single person discount. We come now to the one most people have heard of, and yet the number who fail to claim it remains staggering. If you are the only adult living in your home, you are entitled to a 25% discount on your council tax. No questions asked about your income or your savings. On an average Band D property, that quarter off can be worth well over £500 a year. It sounds impossible that anyone misses this, and yet they do, particularly the newly widowed. A husband dies, the wife is now the only adult in the house, and in her grief, the council tax is the furthest thing from her mind. The discount is not applied automatically when a death is registered. Months pass. She pays the full 2-adult bill on a house where she now lives entirely alone. The discount can be backdated once claimed, but only if she knows to ask. Every pensioner living alone should check tonight that this 25% is on their bill. Number 8. The second adult rebate. Here is one almost nobody outside the council knows by name, and it is built specifically for pensioners. The second adult rebate, sometimes called alternative maximum council tax reduction, helps an older homeowner who shares their home with another adult on a low income, someone who is not a partner and does not pay rent, perhaps a grown-up child who is unemployed or a friend living with them for support. Normally that second adult would cost the pensioner their single-person discount, but the rebate offers help based not on the pensioner's own income, but on the low income of the second adult. So even a pensioner with savings or a decent pension, who would never qualify for ordinary means-tested support, can still receive a reduction because of who lives with them. It is one of the best hidden reliefs in the system, available under the pension age rules, and councils rarely mention it because the eligibility is so particular. Ask about it by name. Number 7. The Disabled Band Reduction Scheme. If you or someone you live with is substantially and permanently disabled, and your home has a feature needed because of that disability, your entire council tax band can be lowered. The qualifying features are specific: a second bathroom or kitchen needed by the disabled person, a room set aside mainly for their use or for their care and equipment, or enough indoor space for them to use a wheelchair. If you qualify, your bill drops to the band below your own. A Band D home is charged at the Band C rate, a Band E pays as a Band D, and if you are already in Band A, the lowest band, you still receive a reduction of around 1/6 of the bill. Crucially, this is not means tested. Your savings and income are irrelevant. The relief recognizes that a disabled person should not pay more council tax simply for needing a larger or adapted home. The council will often require a visit to verify, but the saving recurs every single year. Number 6. Council tax reduction. For pensioners on a genuinely low income, this is the heavyweight, capable of slashing a bill by anything up to 100%. Council tax reduction, sometimes still called council tax support, is the means-tested scheme that replaced the old council tax benefit. To qualify, you generally need a low income and savings below £16,000, though the pension age rules are more generous and broadly consistent across the country, unlike the patchwork that applies to working-age claimants. A pensioner scraping by on the state pension and little else may find a very large slice of their bill, or all of it, simply lifted away. The tragedy is the take-up. Year after year, vast sums in council tax reduction go unclaimed by older people who assume they earn too much, or who are too proud to ask, or who have never heard of it. You apply through your own council, and the worst that can happen is they say no. Number 5. The discretionary hardship relief. Even if you fall outside every scheme above, there is a final door, and councils almost never point to it. Under a provision in the law, often called Section 13. A relief. Every local authority has the power to reduce or entirely write off a council tax bill in cases of genuine hardship. It is discretionary, meaning there is no fixed entitlement and no tick-box form that guarantees success. But for a pensioner facing a real crisis, perhaps a sudden bereavement, a flood, a collapse in income, or mounting debt, this relief can erase arrears that would otherwise be pursued. You write to the council, you explain your circumstances honestly, and you ask for a reduction on hardship grounds. Many people in desperate straits never make that request because they do not know the power exists. The council, sitting on a discretionary fund it is not eager to spend, has little reason to advertise it. Number 4. The everyone else is disregarded rule. This is the secret that ties half of this list together, and it deserves its own place because so few people grasp it. You do not have to live entirely alone to get a discount. What matters is how many countable adults live in your home. If everyone in the household except you is disregarded, whether they are students, apprentices, carers, severely mentally impaired, or fall into any of the other disregarded groups, then you are treated as the only adult that counts, and you receive the 25% single-person discount. Go one step further. If every single adult in the home is disregarded, the discount jumps to 50%. A pensioner caring for a severely impaired spouse where both are disregarded can find half the bill simply gone. The council looks at the number of names on the doorstep and bills for the lot. It is on you to reveal that the others do not count and to watch the discount fall into place. Number 3. The pension credit gateway. Here is the rule that should be shouted from the rooftops. If you receive the guarantee credit part of pension credit, you are entitled to the maximum council tax reduction, which in most cases means your bill is reduced to nothing at all. Pension credit guarantee credit is income support for the poorest pensioners, and the council treats receipt of it as proof that your income is low enough to ignore entirely. The bill is wiped, yet hundreds of thousands of eligible pensioners across Britain do not even claim the pension credit itself, leaving not only that money on the table but the free council tax, the help with other costs, and everything else that flows from it. It is a chain reaction of unclaimed support, all hanging on one application most people never make. If you are a pensioner on a low income, checking your eligibility for pension credit is the single most valuable thing you can do because it unlocks this door and many others behind it. Number 2. The backdating. Before we reach number 1, understand this, because it transforms every entry on this list. Many of these discounts and exemptions can be backdated, and that means the money you were owed in the past can still be reclaimed today. Council tax reduction for a pension age applicant can typically be backdated 3 months automatically and further with good cause. A single person discount missed for years after a spouse's death can be applied retrospectively, and for the relief at number 1, the backdating can stretch back not months but years to the very point the qualifying condition began. This is why a single phone call has, again and again, produced refund checks running into thousands of pounds for pensioners who had been quietly overpaying for a decade. The council does not knock on the door offering to refund money it took in error. It waits. The clock has been running against you. Backdating is how you make it run back the other way. And finally, in first place, number 1. The severe mental impairment disregard. This is the great forgotten relief of British council tax, the one worth an average of around £400 a year, the one that can be backdated for years, and the one councils are most often accused of burying. A person who is certified as severely mentally impaired, which under the law includes a great many people living with dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, the aftermath of a stroke, or a severe learning disability, is disregarded for council tax entirely. They do not count as an adult on the bill. If that person lives alone, the council tax is reduced to 0. If they live with one other adult, the household receives the 25% single-person discount because the impaired person simply drops out of the count. To qualify, 2 things are needed, and neither costs you anything that should stop you. A doctor must certify the impairment, and the law says they cannot charge you for that certificate, and the person must be entitled to a qualifying benefit, such as attendance allowance or personal independence payment, though it is entitlement that matters, not whether it is inactive payment. Think of how many elderly couples there are where one partner has slipped into dementia. The other partner, already exhausted by caring, has very likely never heard those 3 cold words, severely mentally impaired, and has no idea they describe a path to hundreds of pounds a year, backdated to when the diagnosis began. The council knows exactly who in their area is claiming dementia-related benefits. They do not write to those families to tell them about this. They wait to be asked. So there they are. 23 discounts, disregards and exemptions, every one of them real, every one of them sitting in the rules, and almost every one of them left unclaimed because the council will take your money far more readily than it will hand it back. The thread running through all of them is the same. Nothing is applied for you. Everything must be requested, and the system is built to reward the people who know to ask. Pick up the phone to your council. Check your bill tonight. And if you know a pensioner who might be overpaying, send them this. Because the difference between knowing and not knowing is, for some families, more than £1,000 a year.